The Dark Secrets of Brunei, an Islamic kingdom, near Indonesia. When we think of Southeast Asia, we often picture Indonesia with its thousands of islands, or Malaysia with its vibrant mix of cultures. But there's one tiny state that most people barely notice on the map, and yet it is home to one of the world's last absolute monarchies. It is an Islamic kingdom ruled by a Muslim king. I'm talking about Brunei Darussalam. And today, I want to share with you not only the bright, polished image of Brunei that the world sees, but also the darker secrets of this kingdom, the scandals, the controversies, and the realities that make it both fascinating and unsettling. Before I begin, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video with anyone who enjoys real, unfiltered stories about countries and cultures the world doesn't usually talk about. My discovery of Brunei. When I first learned about Brunei, it almost felt unreal. A small country on the island of Borneo, squeezed between Malaysia and Indonesia, yet immensely rich because of oil and gas. I thought, how can such a tiny place survive on its own, surrounded by giants? The answer, of course, is oil. Brunei struck oil in 1929, and that discovery transformed everything. Instead of fading away as just another forgotten colony, Brunei rose again, this time not as an empire, but as a wealthy Islamic sultanate. The Sultan and his power. What makes Brunei unique is not just its wealth, but also its system of government. The ruler, Sultan Hassan al-Bolkiah, is not just a ceremonial king. He is the head of state, the prime minister, the defense minister, and even the finance minister. In other words, every power rests in his hands. He is also seen as the guardian of Islam in Brunei. Since 2014, the country has implemented Sharia law alongside civil law, making Brunei the first nation in East Asia to do so. At first, this might sound like a country living fully under Islamic values, peaceful, religious, and guided by faith. But when I started looking closer, I realized the story is not that simple. The glittering wealth. The Sultan of Brunei is one of the richest men alive. His palace, Istana Nurul Iman, is the largest residential palace in the world, with more than 1,700 rooms. Imagine that for a moment. 1,700 rooms. He owns private jets painted with gold, a collection of thousands of luxury cars, and at one point, he was said to have the biggest fleet of Rolls-Royces on Earth. And here's where the paradox begins. Islam teaches modesty and humility, yet the ruler of this Islamic kingdom lives with a level of extravagance that even billionaires find hard to match. If you're finding this story interesting, don't forget to tap like. It tells me that you want more stories about hidden histories and untold realities. The Dark Secrets of Brunei. So let me tell you about the darker side, the side Brunei doesn't want the world to see. 1. Prince Jefri's scandals. One of the most shocking stories involves the Sultan's younger brother, Prince Jefri Bolkiah. He was in charge of the Brunei Investment Agency, which manages the country's oil wealth. But during his time, billions of dollars simply vanished. Court cases later revealed his life of excess, luxury yachts, countless mistresses, and a lifestyle of unimaginable indulgence. He even named one of his yachts Tits, with two smaller speedboats called Nipple 1 and Nipple 2. The extravagance bordered on the absurd. For a nation that brands itself as an Islamic state, the prince's actions shocked the Muslim world. Eventually, the Sultan forced him to hand back properties and assets, but the damage to Brunei's reputation was already done. 2. Absolute power and no democracy. Brunei is one of the few countries left where democracy simply does not exist. There are no free elections, no real political opposition, and no independent press. Everything is tightly controlled. When people receive free education, free healthcare, and subsidized housing, they often stay quiet. But silence doesn't mean freedom. It simply means that wealth is used as a cushion to keep citizens comfortable while power remains untouched in royal hands. 3. Human rights concerns. In 2014, when Brunei rolled out its strict Sharia penal code, the world erupted. There were calls to boycott Brunei-owned hotels across Europe and the US because of punishments like stoning for adultery and the death penalty for same-sex relations. Now, in reality, many of these punishments have not been carried out, and the Sultan later announced a moratorium. But the laws remain on the books, creating fear and uncertainty. For LGBTQ individuals and religious minorities, Brunei is far from the paradise it calls itself. It is a place of suppression. 4. The hidden cost of oil wealth. Another secret is how dependent Brunei is on oil and gas. Nearly 90% of its economy comes from petroleum. But oil will not last forever. Behind the scenes, experts worry that Brunei has not prepared for a future beyond oil. If the wells run dry, or if the world shifts away from fossil fuels, the kingdom may face economic collapse. And with no democracy, no strong civil institutions, and no real plan for diversification, the fall could be sudden and harsh. The paradox of the Abode of Peace. So what do we make of Brunei? On the surface, it is peaceful, wealthy, and deeply Islamic. Its crime rate is low, its citizens receive welfare, and its streets are quiet compared to chaotic neighbors. But under the surface, there are secrets. Scandals of corruption, extravagance that contradicts faith, a lack of freedom, and looming economic uncertainty. Brunei calls itself the Abode of Peace, but the reality is far more complicated. It is a kingdom where Islam is both a guiding light and, sometimes, a tool for control. It is a land where wealth brings comfort, but also hides injustice. Why this story matters. You might ask, why should we even care about such a small country with less than 500,000 people? Because Brunei is more than just a small state. It is a reminder of how power, wealth, and faith can mix in ways that are both inspiring and dangerous. It shows us what happens when absolute monarchy meets modern oil wealth, and it warns us about what may happen when that wealth runs out. Brunei is not just a kingdom in the shadows of Indonesia and Malaysia. It is a living paradox. A Muslim state with riches beyond imagination, but also secrets that raise questions about justice, humility, and the balance between faith and power. If you learned something new today, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with others who love uncovering the hidden truths of our world. And tell me in the comments, do you see Brunei as a success story or as a warning about what happens when power goes unchecked?